It's a huge honor and privilege to have all of you here today and to have been given the permission to do today's remembrance of the Rivonia trial and its conclusion 60 years ago to the day in the court where all of this happened. This is where the sentencing took place on the 12th of June 1964. 11th of July is when the raid at Lily's Leaf took place and where the majority of the trialists were then arrested. The 12th of June is the sentencing. The 13th of June is when these prisoners arrive at Robben Island, having been flown there. We want to extend our appreciation to the Judge President, the Deputy Judge President, for having agreed to the usage of this place today. I'm not sure many of you, but the emotion of this day is perhaps getting to me. The enormity of what happened 60 years ago and its importance for where we are today, 30 years into our democracy, is what we will be reflecting on. And Justice Jody Colopin will talk to us about that. At the end of today's proceedings, we do want those of you who can go down the stairs to go to the bottom, the holding room, the cells, to see some of the messages that were inscribed on the wall, 64 and perhaps even after that. And there is a call that we would like to amplify today, in whatever way it's possible, for the heritage of this courtroom to be understood, to be appreciated, and to find a way of declaring it. Okay? And to find a way of making this a heritage site, including the cells downstairs and the holding room. On that note, I also want to thank the families of some of the trialists who are present here today. It's the Sulu family, Motswaledi, Kathrada, and Mlangeni. We did extend invitations to all of the others through foundations that have been established in their respective names. But Goldberg, the foundation is in Cape Town, and I think the others would have had other work to do today and could not join us here. Nevertheless, it's historic that some of the family members of the trialists are now sitting in the exact benches where their fathers would have sat and heard the sentence. Because of the noise in the court and the softness of the voice of the presiding judge, it was only Dennis Goldberg who heard the sentence. And Dennis Goldberg says, it's life. Life is wonderful. And there's a wonderful documentary that's been made on the trial using that particular title. So on that, we really want to thank all of you and ask the Judge President to make some opening remarks and reflect on what this day means as well.
Thank you very much, Sean. I want to say it is truly an honor to us, the judges who work in this division, to host this event today. And Sean, I want to thank you for making the approach that we host this event today. 60 years on the day today. And I want to recognize the families of the Rivonia trialists who are here. We've poignantly put them in the accused box. And today it happens to be sits in this court. It's not for that reason that we've put you there. We put you there so that poignantly you would understand and relive what your parents lived when they sat in those witness box, in those accused boxes, and listened to the judge sentence them. So, as Shan said, we have representatives of the Mtswaledi family that are here, the Sisulu family that is here, Langeni family, as well as the Katrada family. So, welcome. And I also want to acknowledge the presence of the justices of the Constitutional Court. As you would know, the Constitutional Court is what is called a new court because it's a constitutional democracy created court. We've got Justice Majid and Justice Kolapan who are going to talk to us. And I also want to acknowledge the judges of this division, starting with the Deputy Judge President who is here, and all my colleagues who ply their trade in this division. It is poignant for us to host this function because it must tell us that as the people who do the work of the people who pass the sentence, of the person who passed the sentence here, what does it mean 30 years down the line when we became a constitutional democracy about what happened 60 years ago? It should mean a lot. I was having a discussion outside with Ms. Eleanor Sisulu, who was decrying the fact that the significance of these events that happened a long time ago is being eroded, is getting lost. We rely on foundations like the Katrada Foundation and the media that is here to make sure that we found ways of educating our youngsters, the youth, so that we don't lose the significance. I mean, that trial was one of the building blocks that led to us having a constitution in 1994. So it is very poignant, it is very important, and once more, I don't want to take much of your time, but mine is to welcome all of you here and to request that this should not be the last time an event like this comes here, so that we can relive and re-educate and move on. We've just had elections, and you ask yourself individually whether what you saw coming out of the elections is what the accused who was sitting in the accused boxes would have been aspiring for. I will leave it there. I'm not going to take it forward. So thank you very much once more for attending, and I think Justice Kolopan is following me, but let me hand over the mic to the next person who must speak, and thank you very much for being in this division.
Thank you so much, Judge President Mambo. My name is Latabile Ratumo. I am the Anti-Racism Program Manager at the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, and I have the privilege of welcoming our guest speaker, our keynote speaker for today, Justice Jody Kolopan. So Narendran Jody Kolopan, born on May 19, 1957, is a distinguished South African judge currently serving on the Constitutional Court of South Africa since January 1st, 2022. His appointment to the country's highest court by President Cyril Ramaphosa came after a decade of service in the High Court of South Africa, Gauteng Division, Pretoria, where he had been a judge since 2011. Born in Lady Selborne, Pretoria, to Tamil South African parents, Kolopan's early life was shaped by the injustices of apartheid. His family's forced relocation under the Group Areas Act and his mother's activism in anti-apartheid passive resistance campaigns inspired his pursuit of justice. He studied law at the University of Durban-Westville and later at the University of the Witwatersrand, earning his BProc and LLB degrees. Kolopan's legal career is deeply rooted in human rights advocacy. Prior to his judicial appointment, he served as the chairperson of the South African Human Rights Commission from 2002 to 2009, a period marked by his fervent commitment to justice and equality. Before that, he was the National Director of Lawyers for Human Rights, an organization he joined in the early 1990s. At Lawyers for Human Rights, he coordinated the Release Political Prisoners Program, which championed the rights of political prisoners during the tumultuous apartheid era. Notably, he served as the instructing attorney in several high-profile cases, including the Sharpeville 6 and the Dalmas treason trial. Justice Colopin's judicial tenure has been marked by several landmark judgments. One of his notable rulings was the case of Henny and others versus Minister of Correctional Services, where he granted an urgent interdict allowing prisoners to use laptops in their cells for study purposes. Another significant case was the Limpopo textbooks case, where he reprimanded the National Education Department for its failure to deliver textbooks to schools in the province and issued a structural order outlining deadlines for textbook deliveries. Apart from his judicial duties, Colopin has contributed to legal education as a lecturer at the Center for Human Rights at the University of Pretoria. His commitment to civil society is evident through his involvement with various organizations, including the Legal Resource Center, the Center for the Study of Violence and Reconciliation, IDASA, and the London-based Article 19. Throughout his career, Colopin has been a steadfast advocate for human rights and justice, leaving an unforgettable mark on South Africa's legal landscape. If you could all just give a round of applause to welcome Justice Colopin to his meeting.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for that warm introduction. The light in front of me is quite bright, and I'm not complaining about it because it means I can't really see your faces, and I feel less nervous about that. I'm humbled and honored to be here on this historic day. And as the Judge President has reminded us, this is a place deeply steeped in our history. The pain and the anguish of those who sat in this court is probably reflected in the crevices of this formidable building. And in many respects, we are required to do more than simply gather here from time to time, because it's a part of the DNA of our society. And being a judge in this division for many years, many of us and many of my colleagues who sit here today remain concerned about our inability to ensure that this place becomes truly a place of memory. But I'm encouraged that there are steps being taken to ensure that that happens. I often would speak sort of from little handwritten notes, but I've learned as a judge to be more disciplined. And I've got some notes that I've prepared, and I'll try and stick to them. So yes, this is a historic occasion. Our journey as a nation has been a mixed journey. It's been a journey of oppression and a journey of liberation. It's been a journey of deep despair, and it's been a journey of soaring hope. It's been a journey that has seen humanity's advance on many fronts, but it's also a journey that has witnessed humanity's retreat on several others. And through all of this, this city, this formidable building, and this courthouse has borne witness to many, many, many of those events. The 12th of June is significant, as Shani has pointed out, because that's not the day on which the famous speech from the dock was delivered. That was delivered much earlier. That was the day on which the sentencing took place. I was then 7 years old, and I lived in Middlewestad. It's about 4 kilometers from here. A bustling, thriving community, a community that represented resilience and solidarity. And what would have been a cold winter's morning, I would probably have blissfully made my way to school, unaware that the events in this building and in this court would shape my life and the life of millions forever. I was then unaware of the heroic tasks of men and women who fought for my freedom and for all our freedoms. But later, in the fullness of time, I would come to know them, I would come to know of them, I would come to respect them, I would come to admire them, and I would have the enormous privilege of being given the opportunity to make a contribution in the smallest of ways to the freedom and the liberation of my country. And so I'm honored to be here today in more ways than one. My mum, whom Shal has mentioned, would have been part of a group of women who lived in the Marabastad under the leadership of Mrs. Pillay, who would bring sandwiches and coffee and meals to the trialists standing trial in this court as well as in the old synagogue, which is 300 meters down the road. And so, as we gather here today, and as we honor and recognize the families of those men who sat in the dock just beyond me, we owe them a deep debt of gratitude, because in many respects, what they stood for and what they fought for was not the betterment of their own lives, but to build a truly non-racial society in which we could all, even in our bewildering diversity, could live in peace and harmony. But those were difficult times. The government in place then